Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Smells Like. I'm Josh. So good to see you once again. It's been a while. I'm back with a full review, fragrance review for Chanel's number 19 Eau De Parfum. Chanel number 19 came out all the way back in 1970. Saw its release just 1 year prior to the death of Coco Chanel herself. So this would have been one of the last perfumes that she signed off on with perfumer Henri Robert. He's done a lot of other fragrances for Chanel during that era. 1970, and you know, it kind of has a vintage vibe while also being modern. I'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. I want to go over the notes real quick. I'm not going to read everything that's on Fragrantica. You can go and see all that for yourself, but the main notes here. In the top, we've got green notes and bergamot. In the heart, we have rose and iris, and then the base notes are vetiver, oak moss, and leather. Now, Fragrantica adds some other things, like I think they've added neroli in the top, ylang ylang, and narcissus, and lily of the valley in the heart. And I'm not sure if those notes are in here or not. To me, the notes, those first notes that I mentioned, the kind of the official notes from Chanel, are the main notes that you get here, because this is a very green fragrance. It opens bright and green, almost bitter green, but that bitterness fades really quickly. So if you spray this, you know, on a card, or you spray this on your hand for the very first time and you get right in there and it's, oh man, that's like really very green, bitterly green almost. Just wait a few moments, the bitterness calms down almost immediately, and what you get in the beginning of this fragrance is a gorgeous, sparkling bergamot mixed with this green, grassy, kind of dewy grass thing going on. As you get into the heart, you really get into what I think this fragrance is built around, which is the iris. Iris can be, you know, such a versatile ingredient. It can be really powdery. It can be really leathery, and all points in between. It can have that cosmetic vibe that guys talk about in, you know, Dior Homme Intense. They talk about that lipsticky vibe that the iris has. In number 19, the iris is very kind of in the middle. It doesn't go very powdery for me at all, which is nice because I'm not a big fan of powdery fragrances. So at least on my skin, it doesn't go, there's hardly any powdery feel here, and maybe that's because of all the kind of wateriness that is going on in here. To me, the iris is like this deep blue, purplish iris that's leathery. Iris can take on kind of a leathery texture. And leather is also listed as a note, and while I don't get a ton of leather, I do get a little bit of this like lightly dusted leather, like a, you know, like a fine leather handbag that's just kind of been lightly dusted with iris. And it's really beautiful. It really works with your skin and with your skin chemistry. So I think this could be a fragrance that varies from user to user because of that. Fortunately for me, this really works well on my skin. It works in a way that I love. So as you get into the heart and down into the base of the fragrance, you get this oak moss. It lends to that greenness, but gives it a little bit of depth, a little bit of that mossy texture. So that mossy texture with the leathery texture, it's just gorgeous. There's also a little bit of a kind of woodiness here. Makes me think a little bit of La Pausa from Chanel, the way that that iris woodiness is used in La Pausa, but actually another Chanel fragrance that this kind of most reminds me of, like they could almost be cousins, is Bel Respiro. These have been really my two go-to fragrances for this spring. They've really been my favorites. I mean, these have both been pretty new additions to my collection, and you can see I put a huge dent in Bel Respiro. That's why I went ahead and got Chanel number 19, because I didn't want to go through too much of my Bel Respiro. But what they have in common is that greenness, just that spring, that early spring green, fresh, bright thing. And you know, after a dark, cold winter, you're so ready for that bracing green freshness of spring, and you're really getting that from fragrances like number 19 and Bel Respiro. What you don't get in Bel Respiro is the iris, which really sets number 19 apart. Now, I mentioned earlier that this was first released in 1970. I would imagine there's been a reformulation. In fact, I'm sure of it. And so this is the modern interpretation of the original. There's also an Eau de Toilette concentration and the Pure Perfume. I haven't smelled the Pure Perfume. I did smell the Eau de Toilette. It's even lighter and more, I would say if you smell the Eau de Parfum and it's, if you're a guy and it's too feminine for you, if you don't like that iris, or if your skin chemistry makes it go powdery, try the Eau de Toilette, and I think you'll find that it doesn't have much of that iris or as much. It's more green, more fresh, more bright. But I kind of like the balance that the Eau de Parfum has. It's got the balance of that bright, really just like luxurious feel to it, but like vintage too. Like vintage luxury, which is just such a cool thing. This fragrance does what all of my favorite fragrances do, and that's that it takes all of the ingredients and it makes something new. It makes this homogeneous smell. And if you're not trying to pick out this and that and the other, this creates its own masterfully blended scent. And that's what I love about wearing this. When I'm wearing this, I don't really think, oh, I'm wearing iris. Oh, I'm wearing bergamot. Oh, I'm wearing rose. I don't really smell rose at all in this, to be honest with you. The floral aspect is there. It's at the heart of the fragrance, but to me, it doesn't, I'm not that big into floral fragrances. I'm not big into powdery fragrances. It's blended in such a way that each player just blends into the next. And like I said, it creates that magic. That's the magic that we get from perfume, when you can take a list of ingredients and put them together, and instead of just a hodgepodge of the ingredients, you know, kind of piecemealed, you get something altogether new. You know, it's modern alchemy, really. It's really kind of magical. That's what I love about perfumery. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback wearing this. This is a fragrance that gets marketed towards women. When it first came out, it was marketed as a sort of the modern, you know, lady, the bohemian modern woman, and so that's kind of what they were going for. But in this modern reformulation, I don't know if the original had this unisex vibe, but to me this is totally 100% unisex. In fact, it leans a little bit masculine on my skin. I don't get any, you know, I haven't had anybody ask me like, are you wearing a ladies fragrance? Actually, I've had other guys tell me that they really like the fragrance that I was wearing. One guy said that I smell like summertime. Just that I smell kind of fresh. It reminded him of being outside in the summer. And this really has that kind of outdoorsy, it has some natural feel to it. And so, you know, that's really the deal. I've been loving wearing this. The longevity is quite good on my skin. It'll last all day, but it's not a big projector. It's not a very loud fragrance. I find myself reapplying at least once through the day because I like to be able to smell it. It's been enough that people, when they're around me, have noticed it, but I don't. This isn't a room filler. It's a little more close to the skin, and that's fine. You know, not every fragrance is gonna shout. This really is quite sophisticated, I would say. It's a great mix of sophistication and also kind of like a bohemian vintage feel. You know, that 1970s bohemian vibe. And the leatheriness in this is really cool. I love the iris, the way the iris plays off the leather. Iris itself can be leathery, but then you've also got a little bit of a leather accord in here that kind of accentuates that. So you get this leathery, mossy, green grassy, bright, sparkling, fresh spring fragrance. So that's Chanel number 19 Eau De Parfum. Really good to be back here on the channel. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments if we've got any fans of number 19, if you prefer the Eau de Toilette. Let me know how this one works for you, because it's going to work differently. I really have a feeling that this is one of those fragrances that is going to have a lot to do with each individual person's skin chemistry. Fortunately for me, it's really been working great on my skin, and I've really been loving it. It's just it's really become a spring staple for me, and for years to come, every spring I'm going to be busting this out and getting a memory of early spring. Which is something I love to do. I love to wear a fragrance for a certain period of time and then put it away, and then the next time I bring it out, it brings back all those good memories and feelings and all the vibes of spring, and especially early spring. It's when it's still, you know, it's still cold and bracing some days, but you're getting, the flowers are coming out and the green grass is growing, and you know, that kind of dewy grass thing is really well done in this. I've also been really obsessed with Bel Respiro. You can see how much of that I've gone through, but I'll have to save that for another video. So hey, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye.